Right, folks. Right. This is taking me a while to get going, so I apologise in advance. This better turn out okay. I'm going to lose my mind if not. I've been restarting Streamlabs over and over again because it's just not been behaving itself. Right. Coffee sip. Done. Right. This one, I'm going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to do it live because normally what I do is I take footage from then talk over them and have things to say about what I think about the game. But this game is so complicated and I don't even think I can do it justice in this quick 10-minute quick look, so to speak, of the game, but I'm going to do my best. Basically, what we're playing here today is Crusader Kings 3, and this is a recent discovery of mine. I know this game's been out for a while, but it's a fairly recent discovery of mine, and it has blown my mind with its complexity. It is maybe the single most complex, interesting, fascinating, and in many ways impressive games that I have ever played. It's just layers upon layers of systems that sort of coagulate into this one massive, ugly and beautiful, massive political intrigue that is just utterly fascinating. So, what we do, this is when you start a new game, this is where you end up. This is your sort of main menu, and up here at the top, this is the period of time that you can start your games in. We're going to start in 867 in the earliest because, and I know that when you're playing the game, it seems to want you to start, or where does it tell you to start? It kind of, is it Fate of England? Nah. Rags to Riches? Nah. It maybe is Wrath of the North. I don't know. Basically, this is where you want to start because what this does is it starts in the earliest time scale, which means there's less complicated things. As you start in later time periods, you start dealing with massive empires. And these massive empires are unwieldy at best. And I would say that unless you understand how to use these games or play this game properly, don't. It's too much to it. So if you start at the end, you're basically dealing with tribes in this area. And because of that, the systems are a lot easier. The modes of government are a lot more simple. And it's much less complicated. Again, I think I say this in every video. Apologise, you can hear my dogs. They are grunting away. But yes, so these are, when you pick your time period, it gives you suggestions on who you might want to do and what you might want to do, because this game's pretty open and doesn't really have an end period. Then you sort of set your missions by yourself. So if we do, is that the one I was looking for? Yeah, the Fate of England. This one probably encourages you to take on King Harold of England, and something must happen during this time period where you've got to try and fend off invasions. Then there's other ones like I'd say the Wrath of the Northmen would be my mind. Yeah, so you can start going to Alfred of Wessex, who, if my understanding of history is right, I know he's a real person. He's a real person. These must all be real people. But anyway, he is largely considered the man that began the ball rolling to what would eventually become England. So if you want to be that man that does that, you can take on Earl Alfred of Wessex to try and grow your influence and join England together. Now, this is interesting in a way that most games that are sort of real-time strategy games will allow you to play like the god figure, whereas in this game you play one man who is a king or an earl or whatever you want. I mean, you can start the game in these empires as just a tiny little man in a massive cog and try and grow your influence or grow your family's influence. But so you play one man or one person in this game, and when you die, your control of that character moves on to their sort of next in line, so to speak. So your job is to not only grow and manage your influence, but also make sure the family's legacy is preserved. And I mean, and starting to discover as I play this game that as you play, you may have to make decisions that would be bad for the king that you're controlling, but will ultimately be good for the family. So like, one thing I struggled with, and let's start a game actually before, because then I can start. So I'm going to do this. This is the earliest time, and I would say this is where you start for a beginner, and then I'm going to click play it as any ruler. And then it'll allow me to pick whoever I want to, and then we can start playing. So this is your world map, and this is us. We're now going to look for a ruler that we're going to play and take over. So you can take over one of these large areas, which would be him. And if you can see all these white lines here, you would control this entire region. And these are your duchies. And your duchies will each have a ruler. You can be him as well if you want. So if we wind out again, if we pick what would eventually be Kazakhstan, I suppose, he's the ruler of all these areas. And within this area, obviously in these times, because you don't have mobile phones and things during this time, this is a hard area to manage. So what kings and rulers did during this time is they had earls, duchies, lords, things like that would then run this area. So this is his entire area. This is your capital. And within that, he sort of is the top manager, the CEO, so to speak. And he also has store managers located throughout the world. And it's these store managers' jobs to keep control of the area for you and pay you taxes. So this area, for example, he will own this area and he will be the direct lord to this. So any taxes coming through to your royal coffers will go directly to you. This one, for example, is ruled by the High Chieftain Ertekin. And what that'll do, instead of you getting all the money from taxes, he will pay a certain percentage of his taxes back to you, and it's up to you to sort of negotiate and manage your rule. The interesting thing about this is, like, he also will have his own missions in life, so he will maybe not like this area. So I've found, when I've been taking over areas of Ireland, which is what I've been messing about with predominantly, that my sort of subjects and people that are my vassals, that's the word that this game uses, they've been invading and fighting each other. And what happens, sometimes he might take over this area, which will be great for him, but eventually he might then take over this area, and eventually he'll grow and have enough land of his own to potentially rival you and create an uprising and try and usurp you from the throne. So you need to be monitoring what your vassals are all up to, and make sure you've got adequate control in the country or the area. Make sure that they're paying their taxes. Make sure that there's no schemes and things, which we will go into actually. But for starters, the UK area is a good place to start. I would say less so England and Wales, because England and Wales, as anyone that has any sort of understanding of this history will know, is an incredibly volatile area full of, I mean, Ireland is largely the same, but this is a volatile area that there's not only a lot of significant, as you can see, these armies are all fairly strong. A significant area of infighting. There's also, well, we've got it here in Strathclyde, and we also have it there. We have a significant Viking and Norse influence. Well, Jorvik as well has it there. And they are extremely, as you can see the amount of soldiers they've got there, they're extremely problematic for any leader. So I would say start here again, because they're not massively strong armies, and they're all fairly small areas, and there's a lot of them, and this is a sort of good area to grit your teeth, or cut your teeth, sorry. So let's start here. He's quite young, so I would say this guy's quite young, so that's quite good for getting you started. He's only 24. If we click on him, he's just, his personality traits is gregarious and he's trusting. So the thing you need to look at for these things is that this is his nature, and if you make decisions that would go against that nature, he will increase the amount of stress that he takes and has while he's going over his rule. And if you keep taking much stress, that will lead to a mental break, which then may lead to bad things happening, and you losing control of your country or your area. So let's start this one. So we now have Ormond. This is our area. These are our fellow earls. And what happens if you take over enough earls, you can then form a duchy. So as you can see, this is the realms. This is all the sort of three areas, so to speak. We also have duchy titles. So if I was to take over, so I have Ormond. If I was also to invade and take over Thormund, Ennis, and Desmond, I would be able to create the Duchy of Munster. So rather than being the Earl of Ormond, I could make myself the Duchy of Munster. And then there are limits, which I can't actually remember where to find, but basically you become the Duchy of Munster, and then you would delegate your earldoms out to other people. Once you do that, you can get kingdoms. So if you that tends to be what I do when I play this game, is I'll try and unify Ireland and then start messing around in Alba a little bit. Very scared of England because they're tough, man. And then you can get empires, which obviously the Empire of Britannia, which I think I may move on to trying to do next. And then you also get the faith. So Catholicism tends to be prominent in this area over a lot of Europe. How this manifests itself is that this is like Norse stuff. How this manifests itself is obviously I find it easier to make friends with people of similar belief. And Catholicism, if I was to invade and hold countries like that, they might not want to be held by someone that has a different faith to me. So you're trying to manage, and in some cases you can eventually convert other people, or you can convert yourself. And stuff like that. What else have we got here? We've got cultures. These are obviously, again, similar to the religion. I'm more likely to get on with Irish people than I am to Gaelic, Norse, Cumbrian, Pictish, Anglo-Saxons. And we have houses, which is like, again, this is just a bit like, well, at the moment it's like the realms area, but that's because we're very earlier on. So the first thing you want to do when you start a game, I believe, is have a look at your character. Now, again, we're saying he's a conscientious scribe, which means I get +2 to learning, which will help me if I'm trying to learn things, for example. I mean, that sounds obvious, but we'll get to that later. If I was to die tomorrow, I would transfer to my brother, who actually is pretty good. But anyway, we're not there. So what we want to do is we want to find a spouse for ourselves. This can do multiple things here, and you've got to, this is where this game starts to get complicated, and you've got to try and consider these things. So these bits are how they currently like you. She's terrified of me for some reason, not sure why. These are how much they like you, and the less, again, we'll come to it, but factions become a thing when people don't like you, and that includes your queen. So you've got to pick your queen. Which one do you think is going to do best? So the thing I tend to look at first of all is her traits. So she's a coward, she's ambitious, and she's zealous. So sometimes your traits will clash or complement your character, but in other times these are also things that you can pass on to your children, so that when you're thinking about when you die and you move on to your heir, what traits do you want to then pass on? So I don't really like her traits. So what she's got, this one's greedy, not a fan of that. She's calm and arbitrary. Don't like that one much either. What else have we got? We've got sadistic, we've got deceitful, and we've got lazy. That's also bad. This is not a good start. These are all random and they can change depending on each time you start. So this girl she's paranoid, she's fickle. I think that's bad, but she's also just. I think she's the best one so far. We've got shy, we've got ambitious, and we've got greedy. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad one. I tend to build my characters to try and make money. So that's she's maybe not going to be a bad one for me. She's also a charismatic negotiator, which we can come to in a bit. Let's have a look down a bit. Generous, craven, and lazy. We've got ambitious, we've got an arrogant, and we've got a deal. I'm going to go for this lady. The other thing to consider are these things. So this is the house she's from. If it's a house that what it does is, for example, let's have a look over here before this game starts properly. Where did we go? Right, so you're like, right, I've got 964 soldiers. These are your immediate worries. I would say Thomond is a bit of a worry. They've got more soldiers than me. They've got a larger area of land, and they've got a chieftain who's a good diplomat. He's impatient. He's not a great war leader, so that's not too worried about. But basically, I would say he's an immediate concern. So it would be nice if you could find a wife that would have this little badge, because that could create an alliance that you could then use to minimize or reduce your the possibility of being attacked. But who do we choose? We're going to choose this lady, and it could create an alliance with this country. These ones here, they've also got claims to titles. So if you're playing your game and your diplomacy right, some people like to, you can make a game full of subterfuge, so you can kill people in court and try and get away from people like that, and create schemes and stuff. So if you were trying to maybe increase your influence in this area, these are potential titles that you could adopt as your own if you had played your cards right. Because she's female, depending on the area of the world that you're playing, especially this area of the world, it's unlikely that she's ever going to inherit these titles, so by proxy neither will you, but it's something that you can play with. Right, so we're gonna send a proposal. This suggests that him, who's I think her dad, he will accept the proposal. So we're going to send that proposal, and we're also going to look at our brother. This is also, so you can also set up matches with your siblings and courtiers, and these are less about lineage and more about creating allies and scheming and trying to manipulate the political field in your favor. So if you've got a lot of allies, you're less likely to get invaded, or you can either ally with people that you're worried about, or ally with people who you have a lot of similarities with, to try and increase your reach in the area. So she's generous, she's great, right? So I'm not worried about these at the moment anyway. I am more interested in Earldom of Thomond or Desmond. See if we can find, is there anyone that wants to be an ally of mine in this area? Right, so we've got, not really, Hale. Interesting. So let's have a quick, so I don't see a lot of options here, so I'm going to leave that at the moment. The next thing you want to look at is this. So these things will pop up. You can turn it on or off, but these things will pop up to try and help you. This is your lifestyles. So if I look at this, my lifestyle fits this one, which is, let me just double check. I'm having a wee blank there. Diplomacy. So I'm best at being a diplomat. So if I look at this, you can either just go for whatever you want, or you can have a look at these things. Because of your education, this is my learning, you get 10% more experience in this lifestyle, but my strengths sit here. I usually go stewardship because I'm trying to make money, but let's have a look at this one. So this is you've picked your sort of chief overarching goal. Your next thing is to then choose a focus. So medicine, which gives you +1 learning, gives you a small health boost. This one will help you develop, give you a development boost, which I think is the one to go for. You see these are already unlocked as well, so that's another reason that you might want to do that. In theology, which will give you a piety bonus. I have found that piety is not a difficult thing to come by, but it may be that I'm just picking a region of the world that's fairly easy. So let's go for scholarship, which means I am going to focus on these things. So at the moment, I've also unlocked my wards can get additional skills, and then we can become your friends, which is good. Cultural fascination, I'll show you that in a minute. Open-minded, which is good for dealing with other cultures. And then these are the other things that you can unlock along the way to eventually get the scholar trait. So once we've done that, the next thing I'll show you, this is your sort of income or your currencies. This is your money. So every month you'll increase by 1.4. This is your prestige. Obviously you want to be as prestigious as possible, because more people will listen to you and you'll be able to get better marriages, and less people are likely to invade. This is your piety. This is what your religious culture thinks of you. And this is your renown. This is how famous you are in the area, which again is useful. This is like little hints about what you can do. I can declare some wars, you can marry off your family members, and I can hire a court physician. This is the next thing you probably want to look at. This is your domain. At the moment we only have 1 earldom. We obviously want to increase that. We're working in a tribal nature, so as you move up again, so like your tribal authority, you get up to 4, and these grant you different things that you can do. Once you've done that, you can then increase it. You can move on to a feudal crown, and then on to different things like that, and climb up the ladder. And the good thing about that is, or at least, I mean, this is the thing with this game, and I'm never going to be able to cover everything in this quick video, but what kind of authority you're doing, for me, at least in the early game, will dictate your sort of succession plan. So if I have 2 sons, we have a confederate partition in Ireland. That's how tribal Ireland works. It means that any eligible player heir, your titles are broken up evenly. So say if I have 2 kids and I own 4 areas by the time I die, your empire will go from this big to half that, because your brother will take over this and you end up fighting your brother. So what I've tended to do was, if I think I'm getting close to dying and I've got a couple kids, I start making my kids take the clergy, because if they go off and become priests, then they forfeit all their lands, and I try and manage it so I've only got 1 son rather to take over. But quite often you'll die unexpectedly, or something will happen and you'll end up having to fight to take back your land quite quickly at the start of the game. This is your military. This is the size of this is how you manage your army. It's not like modern armies in which you have a standing army. This is like old style armies that if you call upon your army, they'll all come from your area all over, because they're farmers, aren't they? And then they'll come and rally here for you to send them off to fight. This is your levies. That's who you're calling upon. And these are your more highly trained, useful soldiers. The next bit, and you spend a lot of time here, this is your court. This is what people do, and this is what each different area does. So this is your spy master. These will do things like find secrets and uncover plots, of people that are trying to scheme against you. Depending on how good she is as well, this is where you'll do a lot of your scheming as well. So you may be wanting to try and sway other people, you might be wanting to find secrets that you can use against other people, and you might even be trying to murder someone or disrupt your own schemes. This is basically your war general, and the better he is, the better you'll do in fights. You can also use him to increase control in areas that you don't have much control in, if you own the area. Chancellor, obviously, manages your money. Your steward sort of does your taxes and things like that, and at least at this point in the game, this is your priest, and you have no power over him whatsoever. So you just want to try and scheme and make sure that he likes you, and that's the best you can do, because obviously religion is important. Courtiers, these are people in your court. So this will be like your wife, your kids, your friends, your allies, and you take from this pool and give them council jobs. And also these are court positions. So if I want a court physician, she's a poor physician, so what I would do there is you can go to your decisions tab, and then you would go, I'm looking for a physician, and you'll start the search for a physician, and then you can choose from there, because there's no one in my court that is any good at being a physician. She's average, I'll give her that job. Then we've also got that one, average, we'll give them that job, at least in the early game. It's not too dangerous. Prisoners, obviously, are prisoners. You can do a lot of things with them. You can release them. You can ransom them to people. You can try and adopt them into your own court if they've got some stats you want. You can try and convert their faiths and things like that, which again, when they go back, so you might manage to capture a king's brother, son, wife, and then you can ransom them or even keep them for yourself. Factions. This is where if you become unpopular, or people that are looking to increase their influence beyond you, this is where, if your spy master's any good, you can uncover factions, and this is where you would manage them and watch them and monitor them, make sure they're not getting too big. But yeah, we've done the general. So what we're going to do is we're going to press play for a little bit. We're going to get that marriage in place, which will happen in a moment. I'm expecting a marriage. There we go. So we'll pause that, and if I click on myself, I've now got a wife. This is your wife. This is your traits. This is her traits. And what you want to do at this point, she takes on the chiefess role. So you want her to give you help, and she's best at chivalry. So I tend, depends what your objectives are, but I would tend to just put her, give her best trait, and she will then go and help whoever you give her to. So she's there, so she will augment any wars that you might have. So just to let you see how that works, let's have a look. So we've got Earldom of Leinster. We've got Earldom of Ossory. I've got 974. 5. We're going to try that. So we're going to declare war on Desmond. So we're going to try and take war, and we're going to conquer the county. So we're going to click that. It's going to be a cost of 25 piety. Declare war. Then we're going to raise our armies, which have been raised, and we're going to go to fight. Now, I'll put this on 2 so that I can speak while it's going. So what they're doing is obviously they're walking over, and we're going to try and take, what have we got here? Even to a chieftain and his court, as per my request, my servants have inquired. Oh, so this is the physician that we're talking about. So this one will be cheaper, but they're not as good. This is a better physician, but it's a bit more expensive. I'm going to take him. I've overspent now, so I've got no money. I'm in debt. Don't worry, we're still getting plus, and that'll go up again when we're finished this war, so hopefully we'll be able to work our way out of that fairly quickly. The game does like to freak out. So, this is my marriage it's talking about. I can gain money if I take taxes to pay for my wedding, or I can gain military prestige by saying, oh, don't worry, we won't make our servants, or sorry, our subjects pay for their own wedding, but hey, we need money, so we're taking that. Anyway, yes, so we're off this fight. So lots of things will happen in this fight, or lots of things. So so this is it. So this is sort of, I will probably win this fight. They're defending in their own lands, which gives them a boost, but I've got more soldiers, I've got better quality soldiers, and I've got more men at arms than they do, so which means I will probably win the fight when it happens, but we'll see. Let's speed this up a bit and force it. So what we'll do is we're going to have this fight, and then hopefully we'll win. As you can see, the battle happening here, and then we're going to siege basically their capital and try and starve them out so that they quit and let me become ruler of the area. So basically, this guy is in his court. I've invaded his country. I've beaten his soldiers. His soldiers are going to retreat, regroup, and they'll probably come back at me. What this bit is, this is the siege. We're sieging. What have we got here? Age of the world. I have been studying the ancient religious texts and the writings of scholars, and they all seem to agree that the world will end 6,000 years after its creation. By my calculations, we are less than a century away. However, my suffragan bishop, this guy, urges me to keep it to myself, leave it to the clergy, and avoid panic. What? Your calculations are wrong. So we get... I don't want to spend... I don't want to spend my piety, but I want to gain leadership. So I'm going to... So everyone loses... Well, someone loses... This one doesn't really... It gives me 100 experience and doesn't seem to give me any negatives. So I'll take that for now. We're sieging this. Once this gets to full, if they are unable to counter me, which they won't... See, we're having a fight again, but they were obviously... took heavy losses last time, so they're not going to win again. The thing that they would hope at this point is if they could have brought some allies to bear on me. They don't have any, so they're going to lose. We're back to sieging now that we've beaten them again. The sieging continues. Let's speed this up a wee bit. See, I have victory, victory, victory. I've got an unmarried heir, which we know about. It's my brother. So we've won that fight again. And we're going to continue to siege this area. We're coming back for another go, but again, I've got 100 odd soldiers to my... It's going to be a decisive one. Right, so they have admitted that they've been defeated. So we then come to this bargaining table. And we can either surrender, we can a white peace, or we're going to enforce demands. So I get some fame. All my allies that have none would also get some fame. And now this becomes mine. So I'm the holder. And this is now Ormond, as you can see, has now increased in size. This is your house. This is quite fun looking at your family tree. But anyway, So I've got my brother's nephew. My nephew's in prison for some reason, and he's only 2 years old. Not sure what's going on there. But yeah, so now I've increased my hold, and you want to disband your armies because you'll stop losing money. So I've got a low country control in Desmond now. So what I would do in this case is I would go to my council, gain control. I've got low control in my own country as well, so I'm going to gain some control there. And basically that's the general gist of the game. You want to try and increase your influence. These guys like me. I'm probably not likely to get invaded from them. These are the buggers. They're hard to defeat, and they've got huge amount. They're hard to defeat, and they will raid. So will everyone else. You will find they often come in and raid and cause trouble in your areas. I think one last thing I want to discuss before we go is this was my capital, and these are the kind of things. So you can upgrade your tribal hold, and you have an upper limit of what you can do. So I can go to level 2. Eventually these will become your castles, but you need to upgrade to your feudal system. At the moment we're tribal, so we can't do that. But what we can do, and these are things that will increase your soldiers, the proficiency of your soldiers, and your ability to make money as well. But these also all have upper limits. So the thing you need to do here, once you're doing that, if you want to eventually have a castle, so like I'm saying, if you want to have a castle, you want to then get to a feudal government away from tribal. So to do that, this is the wrong place. To do that, you need to become your cultural leader. So what that does is it takes the biggest person in the area, which is the Meath guy. So if you see when I hover over him, which means in the country of Ireland, he owns the most amount of land. So he is the cultural leader. So he gets to choose what the innovations are. So like you're like, oh, I want city planning, and that will allow you to build these things. Obviously, as you can see on the effects, build a village centre, shrine, prayer halls. Once you've upgraded 70% of these, you can then move on to being a feudal leader. But obviously, to have a say on what these upgrades are, you need to be your cultural leader, which we are not. And I guess in a nutshell, that's it. Without actually sitting with this game for hours, playing it, and showing you and going into each bit of detail, which these videos aren't about. These are just a mere taste of a game to give you an idea of what the game's about. And I hope I've done that. This is a fantastic game. I'm going to be playing a bit more of it. Yeah, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So if you want to check out what else we're doing, please check out my other videos. You can follow me on Twitter at DavidSmillie1, DavidSmillie. See what else I'm up to. And you can go and listen to the podcast, I Wouldn't Urge You podcast, which is a semi-regular video game book club podcast in which we talk about video games. And, well, we play a video game, talk about it, and then hopefully engage you guys about what you think. But yes, anyway, thanks for watching. I've been David. Catch you guys later.